If I could wake up tomorrow and putt like any pro, who would it be? It'd be Chris Dickerson. Cue chain music.
Definitely. Andrew Marwee. That's my guy.
I'd like to putt like old school player Tom Monroe and do the twist.
Johnny McRae.
I'd want to putt like Paige Pierce.
If I could putt like any pro, it'd be Paul Macbeth.
Paul Macbeth. Best putter in the world.
Corey Ellis.
I'd putt like Robbie C.
I'd want to putt like the 2020 Goondocks Open champion, the Kayak Classic 2020 winner, the 2021 CCR Open champion, and the runner-up at the 2021 World's Putting Contest, the Chanimal Chandler Fry!
What is up, YouTube fam? We are out here today answering a very important question, and that is, should you impersonate pros form? KJ! Putting is something that is incredibly unique when it comes to disc golf. There are so many ways for you to get the disc into the basket. There are certain things that every good putt has, and no, it doesn't just include going in the basket. We can learn a lot by studying pro form, and pros do seem to have things figured out on the putting green way more than the rest of us, leaving us once again with today's question, should we copy pro form? I wanted to get the vibe of how others felt about this topic, so I went to our local shop and asked them that simple question.
I think you should if you find a pro that putts similar to you. I would study those guys. If you feel comfortable doing one thing, I would study the guys that do that.
I don't think so, because I think that while there are some baseline things that you need to do to have good putting form, I think that comfort has a lot to do with repeatability and being able to do something over and over and over again.
I would say yes. I would say that it helps add consistency to people's forms, especially when you're first starting out. There's a lot of people that don't know what to do, so it's easy to watch somebody and kind of copy them and add a little bit of consistency to something that is kind of inconsistent.
I think that in some cases it's a good idea to replicate. If you're struggling with your putt and you don't have a good starting point, maybe you've not had any success with putting, I could see why you would replicate someone's putt. But if your putt is mildly successful, you probably should just continue to work on what's working.
I think it's interesting when we see the variance of answers for if we should copy pro form or not, and I have a few thoughts myself. The short answer is yes, I think we should. And also no, I don't think we should either. Let me explain a little more. In the Level Up series here on the channel, we talk about 5 areas that you need to look at if you want to become an overall better golfer. But one thing that's not mentioned in these 5 is consistency. And if you want to become an amazing golfer, you need to be consistently good in all of these areas. And spoiler alert, golf and disc golf alike are just a game of consistency. So let's start with the obvious and simple part of the answer. No, I do not think that we should copy pro players' form exactly. Yeah. That one hurts my soul. A pro has found a way to make their putt work for them. And because we are not them, we shouldn't copy their putt verbatim. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things to be learned from their putt. If you find your putt to be wildly inconsistent, there's no reason you can't look at a pro and start gaining some examples from them on how you should start putting. So the first thing I want to do is stop calling it copying pros form and call it learning from pros form. When choosing your style, you need to look at 2 things. 1, do they have a similar body type to you? And 2, does it have a style or give results that gives you enough excitement that you're going to want to spend the time learning it and practicing it. Don't expect that when you pick a pro form and by watching a couple videos that you're just going to start sinking spin putts like Eagle McMahon over and over and over again from a knee from 60 feet out. Plain and simple, we want to find a pro that we look at their putt and say, yeah, it'd be pretty sick if I could do that. Once you pick that pro or that baseline you're going to start working from, you have to ask yourself, what feels good about their putt? Is it the power that I'm generating? Is it the spin I'm getting on the disc? Is it just my body stepping into this motion that is actually feeling good? Because if the putt's feeling good, that's going to build the confidence, and when you're confident, you're going to release a more consistent shot, a more consistent putt, rather than being nervous and sort of short stroking it like we talked about in this video right here. Remember that we are not copying pros form. We are learning from pros form and trying to decide what works in their putt. And when we find a good piece that works, we can add it to our game. For instance, the deep and obvious power shift that comes from Ricky and Kevin and their leg and their stance allows me to gain a ton of power so that I can putt comfortably from distance without feeling like I have to engage too much arm, too much action, which is just a more crazy variable to control. I do want to take a quick moment to talk about today's video sponsor, Discdot. Discdot is the best putting aid on the market, and not to mention one of the easiest to use. The dots come in a massive amount of colors, making them super fun to personalize. They're super simple to move around the basket, which also allows you to practice multiple types of putts rather than just a dead-on straight one. But my favorite part of the disc dot is the instant feedback it gives you. When your putt hits one of those dots while you're practicing, your brain immediately knows, hey, that was like a super good putt. We should definitely do that again. So if you want to support what they're doing, step up your putting game, and support what we're doing here on the channel, head over to disc.usa.com and use code RCDiscGolf at checkout. Every purchase made using that code, as well as purchasing the Robbie C disc dots themselves, goes directly to supporting what we're doing here on the channel. They care about the future of the sport and just want to create some opportunities for you to step up with confidence, focus, putt, and repeat. If you've watched me putt in the past, you'll notice that my putt is based on Calvin Heimberg. The reason I chose Calvin is because A, we have a similar body type, and B, I really like how Calvin can very easily, and it seems effortlessly, give a disc the same run from 25 feet that he does from 60 feet. Not only that, but Calvin doesn't seem to have the long comebackers that a lot of the crazy spin putters have either. So with what seem to be all pros and no cons, why would I not choose to stand there and try to put the pizza in the oven? But like you've all figured out, I am not Calvin Heimberg. When Calvin holds his disc at the top point of his swing, it has a lot more droop and downward motion. For me, when I'm holding the disc, I have to have it a little more flat. Calvin also brings the disc pretty low and then pops it up. I don't bring it that low because it feels uncomfortable to me. But I had to make those changes in order to make it my putt. I want to give a quick list of things you can change in a pro's form to help make it your own. The first is their stance. Most pros find themselves in a staggered stance, but it might work better for you to go to a straddle. I know it might sound weird, but I actually find it easier to add controlled power from a straddle stance more than a staggered stance. The second adjustment you can make is the grip position that you have on the disc. I'm going to be working with Mike to release a video on this later, but the position your hand rests at on the disc can add a ton of variance to the flight of your putt. Speaking of wrist position, the last adjustment comes to the grip, but most importantly, the pointer finger. There are really two schools of thought. The first is the pointer finger resting underneath the disc, and the second is the pointer finger being on the outside of the disc. There are plenty of pros and players overall that do both, so you have to find what works for you. I know for me, when I put my finger underneath the rim, it actually added a ton of power and pop to the disc so that I could get a lot more on the putt and a lot more consistent flight out of my putter. But Palmer Best, one of the best putters in the world, and he goes on top. I said it at the beginning of the video and I'll say it again. Your putt is totally up to you. Don't be too concerned with perfectly copying someone's form, because we're not copying their form. We're trying to learn what works in their putt and in their style, and how we can take that and translate it to success in our own game. As much as I wish he would, Calvin Heimberg is never going to play under the PDGA number 128799. So I've got to learn what works for the player that I am and make that the best style I possibly can. And if I pick up some tips from studying the pros along the way, it just helps me get to that road of success even faster. It's been a pretty fun start to the year so far, and we have some really awesome collaborations coming up that I can't wait to show you guys. With all that said, I hope you have an amazing rest of the week, and I just want to say thanks for watching. But for now, I'm going to leave you with the birdie.